Our next presentation is from Mack Trucks from Darren Jane. He's going to talk to us about electromobility.
Okay, my name is Darren Jane. I'm a district manager with Mack Trucks. I work in the Southeast region. I've covered a number of areas in the Southeast region and a number of states. Currently, I handle the state of Florida and about a third of Georgia. Kind of give you some perspective on where this point of view is coming from as we talk about electromobility. I obviously work for Mack Trucks. We're celebrating our 122nd year in business this year. I've been with Mack for 22 of those years. So we have a rich history with people like you to help, build the country. Mack Trucks is a wholly owned subsidiary of Volvo AB, and Volvo AB is out of Gothenburg, Sweden. We share technology, information, manufacturing bases with Volvo Trucks in North America, Mack Trucks North America. We have European brands with Renault, Volvo in Europe, the Pentamarine line, Prevost bus line, our construction equipment line. All together, when you start adding all of these different subsidiaries together, we probably handle about 300,000 heavy diesel engines a year around the world. So we make our living off of diesel engines, and that's important to consider as we move towards electromobility and some of the goals that we've set with our company, so you kind of get a good idea of where we're headed in the future. So I guess the first question is, why are we doing it? It's to have clean air and clean water. It's for our planet. It's for our species on the planet. So we all know the EPA started around 1970. It started after we caught a few rivers on fire up in Cleveland, and everybody started saying, somebody needs to take a look at this. Let's make sure that we are doing the right thing around the planet. So it's not like we're just moving towards zero emissions now. We've been making cleaner air for years. It probably started in 1989 when we went to fuel injection, and then we added in exhaust gas recirculation. We threw DPF filters at you and SCR devices and all those after treatment emissions. And it wasn't easy, and I don't think that, and sometimes we didn't really do it the best way. We just threw it on you and said, figure it out for yourselves, sort of thing, when it came to servicing these and keeping them. And so we've taken that and we've learned from that. As we're moving forward over the next 5 years, we still have regulations on the diesel product where we're going to be tweaking some of the things that we do with these emission components. And the other thing we're doing is related to fuel efficiency. If you're not burning fuel, you're not creating carbon emissions. So you're cleaning the air with that. So we've got requirements that are set for us, and you're going to see increased air faring and air fairings where you've never really seen them before to kind of help with that fuel efficiency. But the way to really take it to the next level is to use an alternate fuel, right? Some of you might already be using natural gas or propane in there. We're going to continue to move towards this, and electrification is kind of leading the way for what we're headed into. So the Volvo Group is part of the Paris Accord in Europe, and as part of the Paris Accord, we've agreed that we will be a manufacturer for fossil-free products by 2040. If you think about that, that means we're going to make our last diesel motor in 2039, and hopefully I'll be retired or very close to that. But nevertheless, it's not very far away when you think about planning. Some of you probably have trucks that are close to 20 years old. I know if you don't, you probably have a 10-year-old truck, which means you're basically just a couple of life cycles away before you'll be into a fossil-free product. So there's a few ways that we're doing this. The battery electric way is going to be like the short range vehicles. We've also entered into an agreement with Daimler to develop, and I'm saying Volvo AB and Daimler-Benz have entered into an agreement to develop hydrogen fuel cell technology, where we take the hydrogen chemical reaction, we make energy out of the back end of that, where you can power your electric motors to move your vehicles around. There's also hydrogen combustion engines, which will be a small portion of it, and then we'll continue to use biofuels and LNG, CNG to kind of fill the gap on the rest of it. The goal, the objective is by 2050 to have the complete rolling fleet of trucks in the country to be non-diesel product. So by doing that, we're going to move towards electrification. And this is basically the steady shift. Now, what's important to consider, and I think where your mind should be, is it's not just the truck, right? We can make a battery-powered truck, but it's everything else that goes along with this truck. It's the entire ecosystem. You know, the first thing, really, the first thing, we're getting a lot of interest from local municipalities on the city and the county level, just because of the application that we're talking about here. But the first thing I'll always ask is, is what's your government officials say? What's your government say? What's your mayor say? What's your county commissioner say? And if you're on the path for clean air and you have an objective set to be somewhere by 2030, as fleet managers, it's your job to kind of figure out how to piece that together, how to reach that goal. And that's probably the biggest motivation. Second to that is, what's the power company say? Can they get us power to be able to run all of these products and provide the power that you need to your buildings to do it? Now, I'm gonna talk about garbage trucks, and I know that's not in your wheelhouse. It has a very heavy vocational subject matter, so, and that's the product that we've led with on our electrification journey. So I'm going to refer to the garbage trucks, if you don't mind, as we kind of talk through this. And I really just want to get you thinking about where these trucks might fit into your operations. The next step is the chargers, right? Where do you put them? How do you make them available? I mean, we see them around grocery stores and we see them around malls for automobiles now, but when we're talking about a heavy truck or a truck that's on a route or a truck that has a service on the back side of it, you've got to put the chargers where you need them. The next is finance. These are going to be very heavy capital on the front end, and as I get through it a little bit more, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, but the long-term savings are going to balance it out, which is, it might create some new ways for us to be able to look at these trucks, fund these trucks, put them into service where you're not having all the exposure as the technology develops. Route planning, back to my comment on it, it helps when you can try to fit it into one of your applications. We have some resources that I'll talk about in a minute that can kind of help you figure that out. Operations, collecting the information, figuring out your cost, the training that goes with it. And this is a very important part. The training is, it's not just driver training, it's technicians that need to work on this, it's first responders to know how to handle a gigantic battery on a truck if there were some type of issues. So there's a lot of training that goes along, people just understanding what's going on with the electric vehicles and how to keep them in service. And then the uptime, are you partnering up with someone who's selling these vehicles that has the ability to take care of the trucks, keep them in service for you? So just a little bit about the product. I won't talk a whole lot about it. We have electric motors that power a two-speed transmission in this product, and this is our Mack low-entry garbage truck. Everybody's familiar with the garbage truck there. The two-speed transmission is not necessarily a high and low. It's more of a loaded versus an unloaded. I'll refer to it as a motor rather than an engine because they're electric motors. We can, right now, with the batteries that, I'm going to talk about two batteries. We have the battery that we started with and then the battery that will hit us in October. And the battery in October has a higher capacity to it. That can give us about 100 on-the-job miles for a vocational type vehicle, and then has the power to run some of the battery. On the garbage truck, we can pick up about 25,500 pounds of refuse. We've gained some weight. When you take the engine, the DPF SCR out, we've probably gained about 4,000 pounds. I think we get a 2,000 pound exemption for that weight gain there, but that's gonna cut back a little bit and just something that we deal with. The batteries on the truck are 4 nickel manganese cobalt oxide batteries. We charge them with a DC fast charger. The batteries can accept up to 150 kilowatt hours at 200 amps. 600 to 750 volts. The charger that we're using is a CCS1 plug, which is part of the SAEJ 1772 compliant standard. We can also get some charge back into the truck through regenerative braking. So just imagine a garbage truck that accelerates from one house. Instead of braking to the next house, you'll have that electric motor absorb stop the vehicle, and it can capture that power and put it back into the battery. The accessories will have a 12-volt system, a 24-volt system, and a 600-volt system. The 12-volt runs the lights and a lot of the dash components and radios and things like that. The 24-volt is going to run a compressor, an air conditioner, and then the 600 volts is what you're going to use to propel the vehicle. On this truck, because of the weight gain that we have with the batteries, we're making it in a rear load application or the automated side load that tips the can. The front loader puts a little too much weight on the front axles, but that's something that we're working on to get to for applications that have heavy front axle weight. The dash on the truck it's very similar to what you'll see on today's dashes. Some things that are going to be different is rather than a fuel gauge, we're going to have a battery power gauge, which is on the far left-hand side of the dash. We have a kilowatt hour meter, so it shows if you're using kilowatts of power or if you're absorbing kilowatts of power. A lot of the trip information in the center of the dash is similar to what we're used to. Another fun thing about this truck is it's extremely quiet. So when you start it up, you might hear a cooling fan turn on or an air compressor turn on, but sometimes it makes no noise at all. So we have a little green light down in the bottom so that you know if your truck is turned on or turned off. Miles per hour and then air gauges. So it's when your drivers were to get into this truck, they're not going to feel like they're in a space machine or something. So how do you join the e-mobility movement? So where we are in the process or the evolution is we have an electromobility team that we rely on. So what we do is we kind of get your vision, talk it through with our team to see if it's a possibility. We want to make an analysis of the application and the information that it takes to see if it's something that battery power or battery electric can do. You need to pick how you want to plug in. There's public charging stations, but like I said, when you're service oriented, you're going to want chargers on site, and then you're going to need to know how many vehicles you might have in your electric fleet to be able to charge. We work with some third-party vendors for charging stations, and then you could start rolling clean. So on the portion of that where we try to collect the information from you, we're using our video data recorder app. That's where we want to gather up that information we're talking about. And so it's as simple as an app that you put on your Apple phone or your Android phone. You put it in with a driver that would go on to a route or a normal daily routine. We would collect some information from you on what's going on with your payload, what's the weight of the vehicle, those types of things. Once you have that app, you can start recording and recording at the end of the day. And we can download that into a spreadsheet that gives us GPS coordinates. It gives us time of moving, time that you've stopped. We can estimate what happens when you stop or what kind of power demand you'll have in a stationary position or if you're running a body or whatnot. We can give you a printout that have along with some sales consultation to give you information like the kilowatt hours that were used on your route, how many miles you went, the total time, the top speed, the median speed, just the route information, and then we can also kind of calculate at the end of the route how much power you might have in the battery. What's nice about this is we can look at it and say, and I like to think about the batteries and charging and compare them to kind of like your cell phone, right? You have opportunity charging that you'll do, and you buy a new cell phone, you plug it in, it lasts all day. 4 or 5 years later, your cell phone isn't lasting that amount of time, so you plug it in at your desk or just kind of along the way. As we're running these routes and depleting them, we can kind of place chargers that can help you make it through the day. Maybe for a lunch break, if a guy's at a terminal or can come back to a terminal, he could pick up a charge. So let's talk about that charging infrastructure for just a second. The charging infrastructure is something that you want to think of, ahead of time. With the long lead times now, they're probably comparable to when you would order a truck, put a body on it, and receive it. But in most cases, you're going to have to have some more time to be able to get the charging done. You have to have it designed. You got to procure your parts. You have to have construction that comes in. There's a lot of variables even with the construction. If you decide that you want your charging station to be on the back side of the lot of your building, you might be digging up a parking lot and running a big wire to go out there. I think that as you're looking at your infrastructure, you need to plan ahead. You need to decide what your commitment for electromobility is going to be. It's important because they are costly items, or it can be costly. It could be, just the installation can be 2 or 3 times what the cost of the equipment is. So you want to make sure that you're designing a system that can take care of the number of vehicles that you want to put into these applications. The DC fast charger is what we're going with on the heavy trucks. Most of the automobiles that you see in a lot of the smaller vehicles are using an AC charger. AC chargers can run off 120 or 240 volts. They typically are a smaller charger, and they take longer, 2 to 3 times longer than what you would do with a DC fast charger. DC fast chargers run off of a 480 volt 3-phase connection. You probably have some of them in your shops, but it's a standard industrial power, but most shops don't have that kind of a power. So that's something that the power company needs to get involved in. And I know there are some programs out there where power companies can give you some incentives to get these pieces and parts up to your building so that you can move into this. So the first thing is to make sure that you have that power to be able to run a DC fast charger. And we have several different kit sizes of charger. The 2 batteries that I was mentioning just a minute ago are the 264 kilowatt charger, which is the product that we've been building, and we haven't really built a lot of them, but for the last year and a half, we've been using 264 kilowatts. In October, we're going to have the 376 kilowatt battery in there. It's going to be the same size, roughly the same weight. It's just a denser battery pack that will go onto these vehicles. So with these trucks, we have the 50 kilowatt, which is about the smallest. It's the Heliox, it's a portable charger, and I think it weighs about 300 pounds, but it has wheels, so we call it portable. You could take that, and if you have the 480 3-phase connection with above 100 amp service, you can charge that vehicle in probably 4 to 5 hours. If you have 2 trucks plugged into it in a dual port on the 50 kilowatt, it's about an 8-hour. So you're going to have some downtime on those vehicles to be able to charge them up. As we move, the bigger batteries obviously are going to take a little bit longer, 5 to 6 or out to 10 if you have a couple of them. So you can see how planning ahead, it's going to make a big difference on how many trucks you can charge and how long it's going to take. What I'm seeing in a lot of these public charging stations that are coming up from Electrify America, they're having 300, 350 kilowatt chargers, so you can plug 2 of the trucks in at the same time. Our truck accepts 150 kilowatts of power, but you could take a battery that's completely depleted and charge it to full in about 90 minutes when you're on the big charger. When you're on the big charger, you're going to need you're still going to need the 483 phase, but you're going to need a higher amperage service. You're going to need a couple hundred amps to be able to run some of the big chargers. So I think if you ever get a chance, if you haven't been around them yet, stop by one at the mall and look at them, look at the size of the cables, look at what's happening with these chargers, and I think it'll be very helpful for you just to see them. The 50 kilowatt charger, the portable charger, I call it a dumb charger. It's kind of like you plug it in and it starts to charge. You unplug it and it will stop the charge. Now it's not going to overcharge the battery. It is smart enough to know when to stop charging it. But the smart chargers, the higher end chargers, are going to be able to monitor things. They're connected to the internet. They'll be able to monitor rates for electricity. So we've had an electric truck running around here doing demos in Orlando. It's headed down to Fort Lauderdale next week. But we'll run it over to the mall and we charge it at peak times, and we're paying 42 cents an hour for a kilowatt hour. And I think that if you can get them at off-peak hours, where you'd start to charge at 10 or 11 o'clock at night when the demand goes way down on electricity, you can get them for 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So when you have a smart charger, and a garbage truck's a perfect example, it shows up on the lot at 4 o'clock, the driver can plug the truck in, and it will sit there and wait for the rates to go down, and then it charges it when you're at a lower rate. When you're handling it that way, just running this garbage truck is about $25 a day, I'd say, to be able to, get the lower rates and run it, versus $200 worth of fuel a day, I guess, with today's diesel prices. So you know, over the life or a 5-year period on that truck roughly, you could easily spend $150,000, $200,000 in fuel difference between charging and fuel. That feeds well into the long-term savings versus the upfront investment. We know the product is going to be more expensive. So some of the names that we're using are Heliox, ABB Terra, Urato, ChargePoint, Siemens, BTC Power. I talked about the 483 phase with the CCS1 connector. Some pretty slick apps. I know the EPA has, if you just Google, find a DC fast charger, there's some nice apps that you can get, and then the EPA site has been pretty reliable for what I'm looking for. And you can go in there and you can sort it. You want a DC fast charger with a CCS plug on there, and it'll show you where they are in your area. And it's kind of surprising just how many of them are already up in the public charging arena. Setting up your chargers, it's nice to kind of have a turnkey operation, especially when you're making decisions like you guys are. You'll want somebody to come out and do a site survey, somebody that can discuss how many vehicles you're using, someone that's pretty well versed in the size of wires and things that you're going to need to accomplish what you want to. So there's some pretty big names that are heavily involved in it. Gilbarco is a big one, Shell. ChargePoint, and these people can come out, pull permits, they can completely design it for you, provide you a comprehensive quote, and you know, walk you all the way through the charging process. We have a team of experts, or charging expert at Mack Trucks that we can connect you with. Rain Sabe is his name. If you wanted to talk in detail about charging, we could get you connected with Ryan. He is free advice. He knows all of these suppliers here, and he's been a tremendous help as we're working through the charging infrastructure, the chargers themselves. Kind of back to the new technology, the complexity of the product, putting it on you as maintenance managers. You know, how do we handle that? Like I said, we learned some pretty powerful lessons when we did it with the exhaust after treatment. I think that most of us know what to do with those products now. Our dealers all definitely know what to do, but we've taken a little bit different approach with this vehicle. So we have what we call the Mack Ultra agreement, and it is a 5 or 6 year term, depending on what you would need. We basically have taken a warranty and a service agreement and blended them together, and it's a required. It's in the price of the truck as we're pricing the trucks, giving you that comprehensive protection. We have support from our one call center, which resides in Greensboro, North Carolina. We have these trucks connected through cells, so we can see if there's a fault code. We can do a triage. We can kind of anticipate what types of parts or service might be needed, line up space at a dealership to help you take care of it. The maintenance is a big part of it. I mean, you guys know what you spend on maintenance, you know what you spend on oil. All of that gets wrapped into this agreement. The maintenance on the electric trucks themselves is significantly lower than what you're going to have on diesel trucks. You have electric motors probably around your shop and your house that are older than you are, and you've never done a thing to them. And when you talk about some of the components on these trucks, it's the same way. Still got to get them in, you got to grease them, look at all the little things that are not there yet. The shop, the Ultra agreement takes care of all of that. So that's going to be another part of that long-term savings that I was talking about. You have an upfront cap cost, and then you don't mess with the maintenance again. And a battery performance guarantee, which is kind of an interesting way. A lot of people say, what's the warranty on the battery? And really the way we look at it is, how's the performance on the battery going to be for the end user? So, for example, if I sold you a truck that had a 50-gallon fuel tank, and 4 years down the road, I go kick the side of it in, and now you have a 40-gallon fuel tank, and I'm expecting you to be just as happy with your vehicle. And so that's kind of our mindset, that we want to keep that battery above the 80% threshold. So if it drops below 80% in that 5 or 6 year period, then we replace them. The other thing that we're doing with them is we have a team of people that watch what happens to these batteries. They're finding a second life for them, because a battery of this size that can still hold an 80% charge has a lot of use, right? Might not be in a vehicle providing a service, but it can be useful in a solar farm, or they're basically just looking for applications where they could take these batteries. And then they also stay, within a circle, so that they're adequately disposed of at the end of their useful life. When you're out there having the bricks and mortar, having the investment into the industry to be able to support what you need, it's really important to look at the distributor network. We have over 400 Mack dealerships across the country. We have proven uptime services. We have processes in place to be able to get the parts out in parts distribution warehouses to be able to store these parts. The dealer network is well funded. They're prepared to accept the challenges with training and the maintenance on there. We have a lot of support software, whether it's our one-call number or our Mack Assist, to be able to keep track of the records on these trucks and communicate effectively, throughout Mack to keep them running. And then that established parts distribution network is huge, especially if you're talking about batteries that can be in the $30,000 range. It's nice to have somebody that can get behind you and be able to support the product and do it locally. There's a few takeaways that I wanted to send you off with as you're talking about this electrification. The first is to kind of think through the applications where it might work for you. Short-range applications, products that might have a blinking light on the back where they're, a impact attenuator or something like that just has a blinking light or an arrow, and you're just powering it. You drive the truck out there, leave the light on all day, and you don't need a truck that can do a 12 or 15-hour day. It's something that can kind of fit into the parameters of what the battery is capable of. Zero emissions are the big value that we have. Lower running cost in the long term, greater uptime, very reliable motors that we have on these. Like I said, the noise on this truck is significantly reduced. And when I would take it and drive it around the track, I was sitting there thinking, yes, what is that noise and what is that squeaking? And I didn't realize our seats were this bad, but it's like you never heard it. You always had a diesel motor that was overpowering the rest of the noises that you have in the truck, so that's fun. Extremely powerful. The drivers love to drive them. I mean, you have 4,000 foot-pounds of torque at 0 RPMs, so they can take off like a bullet and stay up with traffic. And garbage trucks are the fattest trucks on the road, so it's kind of fun to be in one that can beat a car off the line. So that's, I don't know if that's a good selling feature, but it's fun anyway. We are why did we choose the garbage truck to start with? We've been the industry leader in refuse for a long time. We're very well seated in there. We understand the application. Our next truck to receive electrification is going to be our medium-duty truck, our Class 6 and 7 Mack. We'll hopefully see that maybe beginning of sometime next year. It takes a little time to get bodies on these, and you know what the lead times are, so that slows us down a little bit. So I would hope to see some of those operational, mid to late next year. And then the truck after that is going to be our highway version, the Anthem, that will come in, and then sometime after that we'll do the Granite, which covers all of the dump trucks and those types of applications. So in the next couple of years, we're going to see some pretty serious acceleration with the product offering on the electric vehicles. The other things are the Mack Powertrain. When you have an issue with one of these trucks, it's not loaded up with vendor components. It's Mack components. They're Mack made in Macungie, Pennsylvania. Our engines are currently made in Hagerstown, Maryland. Our batteries are made here in America. We get some of the precious metals or the resources to make the batteries from other countries, but we do assemble them and take care of them here. A dealer network we talked about, just that made in the USA, and then the ultra service agreement, so you have warranty and service and everything all wrapped into one. We've come up with some pretty attractive municipal solutions for leases, and I know not all state agencies or municipal agencies will enter into the lease, but when you're looking at a product like this, we found that some people would prefer to have a monthly payment that covers the truck and the infrastructure instead of having to deal with a $650,000 truck and $1 million worth of electric infrastructure. So we can kind of help you through some of that. Depending on what state you're in, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with a lot of the grants that are available or incentives that you might have. The ones that we're using here in Florida and Georgia are the DERA grant. And then we're seeing some clean air coalitions like in Atlanta and Miami that are coming up with some funding to kind of help push the electrification along too. So between Mack with the leases and that type of stuff, there are some finance options that you have to keep all this together. So those are the takeaways I wanted to send you off with. If you could just keep thinking about electrification, keep planning towards it. I mean, that's the way we're going. Available to take some questions if anybody has some questions about.
So I got a couple questions. First one, what do you think is service life of this? I mean, we're all used to, in our environment, we say 10, all of us are 15, 16, 20 years. What do you think the service life of this is going to be?
So the truck is very similar to today's truck. So we're using a Mack axle and a drive shaft, the same frame rails, the same cab structure. So all of that's going to be very comparable. The electric motors have an extremely long life, and the batteries, I think, are really the batteries and the battery technology, I think, are going to be what push you into that useful life. So, and it depends on how you use the batteries and how you charge the batteries. I mean, the technical answer for how long a battery is going to last is between 7 and 14 years. And that's how you use it, how you charge it. And it's no different than the battery that you might have on your trolling motor or on your cell phone. You know, if you let it go dead and you let it sit dead and you charge it back up, you've done some damage to the battery and you're going to bring the life way down on it. If you keep it charged up and take care of your battery, I mean, you could get 14 years worth of life out of the battery. So the other thing that I think is going to shrink and the reason why we're focusing in on the 5 and 6 year terms is technology is going to outrun a lot of what we're doing. I mean, we started doing batteries a year and a half ago, and we're changing them in October already, and not just a little change, it's 40% more. So that opens up a whole new array. So we're focusing in on 5 and 6 year deals right now, but I expect these trucks to last longer, 14, 15 year truck as we go forward.
Okay. So the other question I have is, for a lot of what DOTs do, basically our trucks run 24/7 in emergency situations. So what does Mack look as far as in the vision, or maybe even it's too far down the road to even think about that, is how do we address a 24/7 application with electricity and charging?
I think we are at the very start of that, and that's a big question, is what happens when your power sources drop out. So those are things that we have to think through, whether we have a portable power or a generator, stored up power. I've seen some products out there that are big battery powered packs that are charged up and kept available for emergency situations. I think the city of Orlando actually has one, and I believe it was Danco or something like that. Just a big emergency battery that can charge these vehicles, that can power lights, that can, power a command station. So those are the kind of things that we're looking at, to be able to store that power so that you have a window where you could be able to react in an emergency situation. So yeah, a big part of the infrastructure. That's a terrific question.
Maybe addressed it and I missed it. I apologize if that's the case, but the auxiliary kinds of loads on even like a trash truck, hydraulic pumps and the things that are separate from moving it down the road. Is that a Mack product? Are you working with other folks to provide that and plug into that power source, or how does that work?
So we could talk specifically to the garbage trucks. We have hydraulic garbage trucks, and then there's one vendor that has an electric body. We're going to see more of these body manufacturers enter the electric arena. So the electric body that's out there now carries its own battery power. It's about 50 kilowatts of power, which is going to give you better range. And 50 kilowatts of power will pick up on an automated side loader 1,000 or 1,100 cans, which is it's a big route for garbage. I mean, that's a full day of picking up trash. And then the battery on the truck will run the vehicle around. And like I said, we could do an 80 or 100 mile route, picking up 1,100 cans. That's a full day of work, and it's competitive with any diesel product there. The hydraulic versions run off of our electric PTO. We mount the electric PTO right on the side of the frame rail, and it works just like a hydraulic PTO, only it's electrically powered. When we're deciding what body goes onto the truck, we'll poke holes in the frame and adjust and move things so that body fits on there, and we also decide whether or not that body's going to need the PTO or not.
Just to make sure I understood, on the electric version, you would have a completely separate power source for for the electric portions of it, aside from the battery that runs the truck down the road?
We're going to see it both ways.
Okay.
So on the hydraulic bodies, obviously they're using the battery power off of our truck through our
Right.
electric PTO to move the hydraulics there. Some of the manufacturers have approached us with electric bodies that will plug into our truck. We're not there yet. Right now we've got the lawyers involved, so you
Yeah.
always know that's going to throw a few months on top of, the non-competes and sharing of information and all the stuff that goes along with as you're plugging these things together. So
Right.
the first body, it's the Bouvin body, and it was Claude Bouvin up in Quebec, Canada. He started Labrie, and he's moved over to making these electric bodies, and then just recently sold his intellectual property to Heil. That's an easy combo because it brings its own power. As we move forward and we allow people to tap into our battery and use those resources, there's more heavy involvement in there, but it will be both ways. It'll either carry its own power and give you extended range, or we'll use ours. Personally, I would like for everything to run off of our batteries, and I say that because the body that Claude has a second stage AC charger on the body, and then the DC charger on the truck. So you have basically two different plugs, and you better get them both in, or else one half of the truck will work and the other one won't when you go to work. But it's pretty slick watching them work. They're quiet and reliable.
Hey, I'm Mike from Virginia. Who are you currently piloting your electric garbage trucks with?
So our pilot trucks are, pre-production trucks. City of New York was one of the big ones, and then we also did some stuff with Republic Services. On our production trucks that I've been personally involved with are the City of Ocala and then Miami-Dade County have trucks that are being delivered now. Ocala, probably John King up there probably has the most experience with electrification. He purchased 3 BYDs a better part of a year ago now, and has been running those. And with the pressure to move towards U.S. Manufacturers, he's switched over, and so we'll have our first Mack in there here probably next week, so that we can start running those trucks. So this, like I said, the City of New York and Republic have been running them for over a year now with us. So those are the ones I've been involved in.
Hey, this is Nathan from Mississippi.
Hey, Nathan.
How you doing? Quick question about, and I don't know if I walked in a little late, so I'm sorry if you already mentioned this. Across the country, we've got different geographies and different climates. Some of us in Florida and Mississippi, it's pretty hot and humid most of the year. Others, it's dry and pretty cold and wet. How does these differences, especially, I guess, in temperature swings, affect the operation as well as the life of the battery and the truck as a whole?
So that's a terrific question. Batteries in general, they like about the same temperature that we do as human beings, right? So if you're, in that 60 to 80 degree range, you get your best performance out of them. When we start getting too hot or too cold, that's when you'll start having issues with the batteries. We have systems on there that in the cold climates, it will keep the batteries warm, actually heat them up, but you're using some of the energy that you've stored to be able to use that, so you're going to get a little shorter range when you have that. The hotter climates, we have cooling capability on there. We'll have cooling hoses to cool the batteries down if they start to get heated up. The other thing is you're going to probably be running an air conditioner. I know the one we've been running here, I don't think the air conditioner turned off all day. So you're going to have some parasitic draw from running fans to keep it cool, and then running the air conditioner to keep the cab cool. Having that moderate temperature is probably the best. The terrain, the up and downs of hills, the same thing. The power draw you get, you're gonna spend a little more getting up. You're gonna collect a little bit more coming down, but those are going to affect your range too. That's where it's great to have. And I don't know if you were in here for the route app recorder. That's where it's nice to be able to get that information from our route app recorder and be able to figure out what the truck can do. We give you some advice on that. Well, thank you for Mack Trucks, and thank you for me to give me a little bit of time to talk about electrification. And if there's anything that I can do for you, or if you want to go to macktrucks.com to pull up a little more information, or request a quote, or have somebody contact you, I would encourage you to do that.
Appreciate it.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.